everybody, I'm Cameron Mathison, and I am this week's Man of the Hour, and we're going to have a great conversation today, talking all things of masculinity, what it means to us today, talking about health and all the different dynamics coming at it from 360 degrees, and also a really scary health journey that I got through that really kind of empowered me to make life more meaningful than ever.
Cameron Mathison, I'm really excited to have you for about the next hour. I think a lot of the times this podcast, we would like to uphold you for an hour, but you're a busy man. And I'm glad to get you for as much time as we can. But I want to start by asking you about this caffeine withdrawal that you might be having. I saw your story yesterday, right before we recorded this thing. How did you give up coffee and why?
Well, there's nothing wrong with coffee in moderation at all. I'm a big health and nutrition enthusiast, and I was overdoing black coffee a little bit. Not a little bit, a lot. And truthfully, I was coming off of a run on a talk show, Home and Family, and then before that, Entertainment Tonight. And those two shows, so that was 7 years of my career, kind of back to back. It was very, very amped, very, very adrenaline draining, cortisol messing up shows. Plus, I was pounding coffee. It's never a good combination. I haven't really had the chance in my life to completely kind of do like a hormonal reset in that way, and a cortisol reset. So that's a big reason why I did it. I was definitely addicted to it. Like I was really hooked on it, and I never liked to feel that way. And this was an opportunity. So even if I go off and I feel lousy, I'm in quarantine up in Canada for 14 days.
That's right.
Alone in a house. I can't like upset my wife or my kids or anything. So I've made it 14 days. Today's day 14.
You made it all the way. Congratulations, man.
Thanks.
That's hard. That's hard. But I think a lot of it's
hard
because you mentioned addiction of caffeine, at least. And I think a lot of people are addicted to like caffeine or certain routines that they have, even sometimes the food that they might be eating. So to take a small break away from that, I think is really healthy. But I wanted to bring that up because before we get into, I would love to talk about masculinity. Being a man today, you have an incredibly beautiful family, but you've always been this like staple child, I think, in the world of entertainment media, to be so good looking. Everybody's like, oh man, maybe he's a model, maybe he's an actor, maybe he's a TV host. And, there's so much to Cameron Mathison that I think people have looked at for face value, right? And especially being as again, masculine and kind of having to uphold that for some time, which we'll get into in a moment. But I want to talk about wellness and lifestyle too. Okay. Right before we recorded this, man, you were chomping on, you said some squash and turkey and such. Have you always been a health enthusiast?
I haven't always, but it's funny because when I started in the entertainment business, I was more concentrating on just aesthetics, basically just the physique aspect of it. And I honestly didn't accomplish that in the healthiest of ways. So I was doing, not great quality foods. I was just looking at macro nutrients being like carbs, fat, protein, and not looking at the micronutrients and what I was getting in my body. So as time has gone on, I've shifted yes, I've always been kind of interested in it. But it hasn't always been for the best motivation. I feel like now at this point in my life, over 50, I've really made a shift to staying healthy as I can be, and trying to do things that are the best for my body, for how I feel each and every day, and also for longevity.
What's the difference in feeling then from then to now, especially when you used to focus on just aesthetics, and then you mentioned like the high-paced, high environment of being in show business. Do you feel like a mental energy shift of some kind for the better?
When I was sort of at my unhealthiest, but looking my best.
Yeah.
phase,
Yeah. No, I imagine.
It was back in my 20s. So I had sort of endless energy already. I'm 51 now. And I don't remember feeling, I remember feeling often bloated or distended if I ate the wrong things. I always knew I had digestion and gut kind of issues a little bit. And then I started eating very low carb and higher healthy fats. And that was what really gave me the best energy, the best mental awareness. And then when I started incorporating intermittent fasting into my life, that sort of took it to the next level in general. That's sort of when I sort of felt my best, but I'm not doing any of that right now. I'm in this reset. I have gone back to like small meals throughout the day. moderate carbohydrates, moderate,
Sure.
macronutrients. So I feel, I tell you what, though, giving up coffee has made it, tricky in the mornings, obviously, but way more energy in the afternoon and evening. Like
Wow.
way,
Because you're
way,
not
I
burning
can't even
out.
fall asleep. Like I go to bed at 10 o'clock, 10:30, because I'm kind of a loser. And I'm like
Same.
wide awake. I used to pass out at like 8:45 when I was pounding
Stop.
coffee.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
because
what it is.
it drains all of your energy, your adrenals and stuff. So
I'm gonna bring Joey
way more
Thurman in.
energy.
Yeah, I'm gonna bring Joey Thurman up really quickly. I love that guy. He and I connected. And I knew he had trained you a little bit. You know what he told me the other day? You're not even supposed to have coffee until an hour after you wake up. You probably heard that. So it's like
I
caffeine.
have heard that. I
And
never
the
listened to that.
I never did either. It's the first time I'm like, pop the coffee. You know what I've started doing? You've probably done the same. At least hydrate before you start intaking the coffee. Back to the idea of addiction though, with caffeine, I used to think, I'm like, you know what? It's the first thing I want because I feel like it would wake you up, but I think your body naturally will wake up. Anyway, just like a factoid if you didn't know.
Yeah,
Yep.
no, the first thing I always drink is the water when I get up, for sure.
Have to. Even sometimes like lemon water. Dang. Wait, so now you're doing like small portions of food a day. And you said like when you were in your 20s. I'm 25 now. I feel like I'm in the kind of like the dead center of whether or not I feel energetic because of the foods and the coffee and all that, and or I'm going to be reaching burnout soon and have to reset no matter what. But it all comes down to energy, I think, and kind of where you're willing to put that, especially if you stay busy with the jobs like you did, you know?
Yeah, I mean, it's we're all different, right? We're all very, very different. The career path I've taken is one, like I wouldn't say my acting gigs drain me adrenally like my hosting
Yeah.
jobs. Um, it's a little bit more kind of subdued generally, anyway. Maybe not every day, but yeah, we're all very, very different. Some people have severe fatigue in their 20s. I did not.
Yeah.
Mine sort of came as time went on. I was just kind of getting more and more taxed, and then I would supplement with this coffee to help me kind of get my energy back, which is, in my mind, I knew that wasn't a good idea. Like,
Yeah.
obviously it doesn't, it's a drug, but yeah, and we're all different at different times too. So not only are we all
Yeah.
different,
That's
our
right.
genetic makeups and how we run and what we run best on. Like I generally run best on a lower carbohydrate kind of setup,
Mhm.
but some people don't. Some people definitely run better on more of a carbohydrate based fuel system.
You've taken your enthusiasm for all the stuff we just talked about to Instagram. I wanted to bring it up. Where did that idea come from that you wanted to now to kind of show other people healthy exercises, ways of living, and such?
Well, I wanted to also look at health from, like, so I've got this Instagram handle, All Health 360, and it's really a passion project for me. It's nothing more than trying to showcase different aspects of health, 360 being
Sure.
360 degrees of health, and looking at emotional health, meditation, volunteering, spiritual health, as well as nutrition, obviously, and then the physical side of things, the working out. And
Mm.
I interview fantastic people. I can work out with great people. You mentioned Joey Thurman; he was on recently. I've done stuff with Laird Hamilton and Gabby Reese. I've interviewed like meditation teachers, and I've interviewed obviously lots of great functional medicine doctors and nutritionists, and
Mm.
I've just really, really been a way to show people different sides of health maybe they wouldn't have thought of.
Yeah. I love that. You mentioned interviewing. That's you. When I used to think of getting into this business and doing some journalism back in school, I was like, damn, who's the role models? And I think you were one of the first names that came up. Mom used to watch you on ET all the time. Have you
Oh,
always,
no, thank you.
of course, man. Was there always that passion to like not just to talk to people and get, the story sound bites and such, but to really be a storyteller, and then that's bled into everything else that you're now doing? I mean, you're still interviewing people on a passion project on Instagram, doing the Hallmark shows, but is that kind of always been something you wanted down the line for yourself? What you have now?
In a weird way, not at all. I was very, very shy, and I was incredibly yeah, like I just was very guarded my whole sort of life, pretty much, until I kind of got into college. I played college basketball, and I got a
Yep.
little bit more comfortable with myself. And then I sort of stumbled into this business, but still very, very uncomfortable in front of the camera. And really, it's being in this business that has allowed me to get more, more comfortable, more confident, more. And your question about the hosting is such a good question, because as an actor, I started as an actor. I started
Yeah,
as a model and then as an actor. And it's really, those two careers are very, very much focused on self. They don't have to be, but generally people can get caught up in that sort of vortex of what about me mind,
for sure.
and it's a really unhealthy place to live. So obviously things like having kids, things like getting married and working through that, and that teaches you more sort of selfless living.
Mm,
But career wise, learning to get on the sort of side of the camera of a host, of an interviewer, for ET, for GMA, for Extra, and Home and Family, and other places as well. It really allowed me to kind of get the attention off of myself and onto somebody else, and be truly interested in somebody else. And I feel like it
yeah.
really sparked something in me that I love to ask questions, and love, like I want to know about your story. Like I'm here. I know I have to kind of keep quiet, but like I naturally now is really kind of sparked a curiosity and an interest in others, which feels so liberating
Mm.
and fulfilling too, by the way, versus
How
just being like, what about me?
Oh yeah. No, that goes straight into what I was going to ask you now. Like, how fulfilling is it that you, while getting to do what you get to do, number one, it pays the bills. Let's be real here. I think like when you're in a position like you're at a network level, number one, it's a job first. But when your job is to then share stories of other people or get them to say certain things to you because you have a genuine relationship with them that you've developed, there's so many sparks that I've seen of you on television where I'm like, that's because you're able to secure a natural and genuine relationship with the people that you interview or get to work with. And I'm sure you're the same way behind the scenes for all the producers and booking agents of Hallmark, for instance. But that's something we can tell, like when you're live. Nothing about you seemed very fabricated on screen. Why do you, like, I can say that, but for you, have you always felt that there was a genuine, I mean, you said curiosity, of course, but as you're playing this host, essentially, sometimes people look at it as acting, and a lot of actors are hosts now, like yourself. What part of that was so genuine to you, where you're now able to do this and say that you've been doing it for decades now?
Um, Truthfully, it's a good point that you're bringing up, and that is that I feel the best hosts, the best people in that kind of position in the entertainment business are the ones that are the most authentic.
Mm,
And as an actor, I always tried to really prepare to a state of complete relaxation and confidence so that I could just be and listen and react. And that's the goal. I don't want to prepare to a point where I'm stuck in the way I'm saying my lines. I mean, obviously that's not the goal as an actor. As
yeah.
a host, the same thing. As the host, I am a little bit more amped as a host, a little bit more kind of like up and on, but not that it's not in a way that's past my true self and how I like extension of who I am.
Right.
And I really feel like that is the real true importance, to try to go out there and not put on a voice and not put on a persona and any of that. I feel like the audience, I think people at home these days, especially maybe back in the day, having that kind of like network voice at the desk and that persona was a thing.
Yeah.
I think now people want real. They just want
Mm,
real authenticity.
you just shared it with us. We can probably close your podcast now. You just gave us all of that. You know what I mean? Like that people want the real thing. And we had a slogan for a little while. It was "Real Men, Real Talk," and I think that's because simply like people like to hear that you can converse in a way that makes them feel like you're talking to them as opposed to at them. And that's something you probably
Yeah,
found early on in your career. It's not talking
100% true.
Yeah, it's like you want to talk with people, and it goes back to your point just a minute ago, which was that when you're doing things and not just in favor of other people, but you notice that like it's not no longer about you, it's about we and us and our, and sharing those words and experiences with people is very important to building a successful career like yourself, which is so admirable, of course. Where do you think masculinity ties into all this? I wanted to bring up this big topic that I know I mean, Justin Baldoni just launched a book called Man Enough. I think a lot of people are starting to talk about it a bit more, even post Women's History Month and such. I think like every gender, every race is being expressed across like the entire world in all of its favors and glory, which is beautiful to see. But particularly with masculinity, I mean, if you started off as an actor and a model, I can imagine it was always about how you looked and having the physique and being like macho man, for instance. You know, like how did that play into your early career, for example? And then as you took on the hosting and wanted to be this genuine, charismatic, what I would consider like a big, fluffy teddy bear type Cameron Mathison that we see, how did masculinity play into that entire journey?
Well, I think the teddy bear version of myself is the most authentic. So thank
Yeah.
you. I at least I hope so. I
It
hope
is.
so. But I, so I'm going to rewind a little bit. When I was a kid, when I was 2.5 years old, I got diagnosed with a disease in my femur bones called Leg-Perthes disease, leg calf Perthes disease. And it's a degenerative bone disease that I wasn't able to walk until I was 7. So I got put in this very wide A-frame brace. People say it's like Forrest Gump, but Forrest Gump could move his legs in that brace. So picture a rigid A-frame truss like on my legs, a crutch in back and a crutch in front, and I would have to pick myself up on my crutches and swing this A-frame brace along. And so for 4 years, night and day, I wore it. It never came off. And the reason I'm saying that is I started to develop a real kind of identity with being, this is not a PC term, but this is the label I slapped on myself as being the crippled kid in many ways. And so I think that sort of buried identity underneath a lot was part of what really drove me to be so active and athletic and all that kind of stuff. Like I really kind of went to the other side of the spectrum in that, and that macho side of things, of being the basketball star and the guy who gets the girls or whatever. And then even going into modeling and acting, that fed that void of the lack of what I believed is masculinity, this crippled kid trying to prove myself, being validated out there. And I think as time went on, it's a big mistake. And it was ended up being very, very painful because it's a very fragile, delicate, like to live, to place your masculinity or your self-worth on all of these outside kind of validations or attainments, or the way I look, or the way how many girls kind of look at me, or whatever, all that. It's very fragile, and it's of course it's like a house of cards. It's going to fall down. It's not going to work. You're not going to it's not true. You're not filling your soul that way. It's like a temporary Band-Aid over a bullet wound. And so ultimately, as time went on, I realized that, to be truly authentic and to embrace my true self was the most kind of masculine that I could be. And that's very emotional. And I mean, I'm not afraid to cry in front of my kids, in front of my family on Home and Family, the show on Hallmark that I co-hosted. I would cry all the time. And it was like, I feel like even working at Hallmark, doing all these Hallmark movies and being part of this family has allowed me to express what I think truly is masculinity. And that is just to be authentic, to be who you are. I mean, you don't have to be the big tough guy on the soap opera like I was for all those years with the, seemingly perfect body who gets all the girls. I mean, that is not, in my opinion, experience of masculinity. I feel like it's being kind, being emotional, being authentic, being respectful, certainly respectful to women. And that has made me much more at ease, at peace, and that allowed me to be a better dad, a better husband, a better host and actor.
Oh man, you're so cool, dude. You know what? Do you think that maybe the definition or the word in general, masculinity, is getting lost in translation somewhere? And where in men's life do you think it's getting lost? Maybe middle school, high school, or such?
Oh, I've never thought of that. Is it getting lost, masculinity? You mean in like a negative way? Tell me what you mean a little bit more.
Yeah, I think that there's like, anytime people bring it up, it's not often discussed in light that people are like, all right, well, you should embrace it, or should it even be a thing anymore? But I feel like I'm hearing from a lot of young men that, if you're not like the jock or the macho man, you're kind of the other, for example. And then that stigma will continue for the rest of their life, I'm assuming, especially if they're looking to be attractive on the outside and such, or, to be the girl winners. I'm just curious to know if you think that at some point in any man's life, that's kind of getting lost, up for discussion type situations.
Yeah, I think the age of where that's occurring is getting younger and younger. Like I see kids in high school. I know a kid that it's not a big jock and not in that kind of like uh, super tough masculine crowd or whatever, and
Yeah.
but ultimately found himself and was comfortable um, in his own skin much younger than I feel like people were doing in my time. That's for sure. I feel like that whole age, but yeah, the term, like the positive connotation with the word masculinity, I feel like is slipping away a little bit. And
Yeah.
maybe in a good way. I haven't given this a whole lot of thought, so
Yeah.
I want to be a little careful, but I feel like you're right. I feel like it's becoming a little bit more of a gray area is what it is.
And I think that's just, there's so many versions of men nowadays. You look at it from like a racial standpoint. I was having this conversation with an actor not too long ago on the podcast, and I keep thinking to myself that there, at some point down the line, give it 50 years, 100 years, or what have you, certain terminology, certain ways that we're looking at people to be black and white or mixed. Like, I'm half Japanese and people still don't know what the hell I am. And I'm okay with that. I don't have to be half Asian. You know what I mean? And at some point, I think we would have to learn to accept it. But masculinity in that regard is also one of those terms that, unless it's actually brought up, and to everything you mentioned about how you grew up and your experience with it is going to be different. But that's your first point you brought up. Everybody's lives are different. And they're all like, these terms and phrases and the perceptions of whatever we're discussing in life are going to trigger people differently. They're going to mean something to people so differently. And I think that's a beautiful point in and of itself, you know?
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I mean, it ties back into also, even the guy who was super aesthetically, in shape, but super unhealthy on the inside, but feeling macho and masculine, flash forward to a guy who's cares about health and helping others and spreading sort of positivity and helping people get healthy themselves, and
Yeah.
like that to me feels like a very, very different type of the word masculinity, but it's much more authentic, and I think
Yeah.
that's key.
Oh yeah. Cause your interests, I think, peak, and we can see that. I think when we're watching you do what you love, that's enough. And then the fact that you can spread that to other people, that's enough. But if that's what Cameron Mathison wants, that's why it's your life. You know what I mean? And I keep thinking that to myself, like, if that's what you want out of your life, then I think the outside world has to be accepting of that and just let you keep living your life in
What
the
about
best
you
way.
as a 25-year-old, like as a 25-year-old male out there?
Yeah.
How does it feel? How does the term masculinity, like, what does that mean to
Yeah.
25-year-olds?
Well, I think right now, especially because we're all Gen Zers and millennials, I mean, you're seeing that there's certain demographic of men. So if I fit into any, it's usually going to be like the Asian population, for instance. Or I grew up as a military brat. So like, growing up in that sense, a masculine man was someone who flew like planes, or worked on aircraft like my dad. And I was like, all right, macho dude making the money. Normally mom stayed home in Air Force life. So that's how I grew up thinking, like, moms don't work, dads make all the money, come home, eat a sandwich and some chips, and, go to their PT in the morning, go back to work. That's all I saw. And then after getting into civilian lifestyle, it's like everything. I've seen, guys that are fitness trainers, and I'm like, oh, that's very masculine. But then I see someone who's like an artist who, is painting their fingernails, but still straight. And I'm like, that's also very masculine. So my thoughts on it are just like, I think it's exactly what you said. And I might sound very like old soul saying this, but if you're even at my age, if you can learn to accept early on that if you're just being your authentic self, you should be just fine. And then if you have to define masculinity, that's, I think, why we're having this conversation now, which is kind of
Yeah,
interesting. You know what I mean?
well said, really well said. Yeah,
Well,
fantastic.
you're the best, dude. Wait, home and family, Hallmark. And you mentioned you're getting to act and do a lot of what you originally signed up for in the business now. what are your thoughts in terms of like where you want everything to go going forward for you, your beautiful family, what you want for yourself? I mean, because like I think once you start juggling so many balls in the air, you also realize that like the bandwidth of your time is still so short when you have a family, when you've done it all, when you've aired on prime time and hosted so many shows. Like what is Cameron Mathison really looking forward to?
Truthfully, I'm super looking forward to. I'm starting General Hospital this summer. Going back, excuse me, to ABC Daytime, which I'm really excited about. There was something very, very special and dear to my heart about that time of my life. So it's, that was when I was 27. So, I mean, all these years later, I'm kind of going back, and I'm looking forward to that a lot. Working as an actor, still continuing to do Hallmark movies, which I'm really looking forward to. So I could really see myself kind of cruising. You never know, but in this business especially. But
Yeah.
if those two things were around for a while, I'd be really happy. Now, with that said, Home and Family, that show on Hallmark, was probably my favorite job I've ever had, and it got canceled just a few months ago. We found out,
Mm.
but if I was able to be able to host another show, kind of like that, a home show or a show where we just try to spread positivity and help and benefit others, that would really feel super fulfilling. And they're not
Mm.
like one or the other. Like I'm able to kind of do a couple at once, but at the same time, I've always put my family first. So
Mm.
I don't have a whole lot of other life. Like in other words, it's usually work, uh, maybe a little bit of like physical activity or workout, and then family. And I don't really do much else.
It's okay because you got the best of all three worlds, it sounds like. And that's a
I hope
great
so.
place
Yeah.
to be. Hell yeah, from the outside looking in, and it's a great thing to see. And then having talked to you even just now for the past 30, it's like you kind of like get to know someone and how much they really love what they do. All I saw was an Instagram story of you saying you gave up coffee. Here we are 30 minutes later, and I can genuinely tell that you are where you are because of like your charismatic personality and such, which is amazing to see. Um,
Thanks, man.
at what point in your career do you think that there was a stopping point where you had to ask yourself whether or not you were going to continue hosting or maybe go down a different avenue? Did you ever have that point?
Well, in 2019, I got diagnosed with kidney cancer,
Yeah.
and I got through that, and thank goodness. And I at that point, I was like, "Is this sort of speed and I don't know, stress on the system? Is this part of the cancer? And is this for good for me? Should I keep going?" Like honestly, I don't know exactly what else I'd be doing other than
Mm.
what I'm doing, but I kind of questioned it a little bit at that time. Um, Being 50 at that, I was 50 years old and had cancer, and I think a lot of questions run through your head. I didn't know how that was going to turn out. I didn't know
Yeah.
how long I'd be off my job, but I'm through that, and I'm feeling strong, and really, it's sort of empowered me to try to keep doing what I'm doing, and definitely spread the word however I can.
You said you don't know what else you'd be doing. We don't know either, so keep doing it. You know what I mean? You mentioned General
Uh,
Hospital. We're excited to see you on that. That's a good thing. I think when people can look at someone like you, who's always on screens, always at the face of whatever brand or show that might be, that's very refreshing to hear. Life is very short, and I'm glad you brought it up. I didn't know if I was going to feel comfortable enough to bring up your kidney cancer diagnosis and the situation that happened in 2019, but you did. And because of that, I think this is perfect lead in. Life is short. It's the last thing I wanted to talk to you about because as much as you can live and have a great career and as you can interview all these celebrities, like you are a celebrity, you know what I mean? There's just like, there's an element to that where you have to look back sometimes and tell yourself, well, life's short. So of course I'm doing all this stuff now. You're only 50 at this point.
yeah, it's interesting because we know life is short, but what we don't know is how short. And
Yeah.
that's when like life goes by fast. But I mean, when you get a diagnosis like that, you're like, man, the whole aspect. I think the whole part of that quote that people miss is the uncertainty.
Mm.
Is life is short, and we somehow give ourselves 80 to 100 years to live, and you just never know. And this is not like a depressing thing. This is like an empowering thing
Should
to
be.
make your life meaningful now. It's supposed to be anyway. And I heard this, I was on this Zoom with a bunch of people the other day. We're talking about death, like what it means to us and stuff, just a discussion. And a guy was a little bit older. I think he's 65 or something. He goes, if I'm unlucky, I'll have 8 to 10 years left. If I'm lucky, maybe 15 years left. And I was thinking to myself, yes, coming off of this cancer run, you don't know that, man. You don't know. You can't, we make assumptions like that. And honestly, one of the meditations I do a lot of meditations, and I do this cycle of these really kind of structured and guided, beautiful meditations. And one of them's on death. One of them's on the uncertainty of death and what it is, in a way that's supposed to empower you to make the most of this life, to make the most of this moment, and not in a way really to fill your life with more jobs and more stuff and to acquire more things, or to go to Vegas and party more often. It's really, in a way, it's meant to motivate us in a way. So what does a meaningful life mean to us? And like, how do we fill our life with more meaning? Is it family? Is it kids? Is it more spiritual practice? Is it more benefiting others? Is it more training and working on our inner qualities to become like more loving and compassionate and patient and respect for others? What is that? What is a meaningful life? And that is my big takeaway from my cancer journey. And it's the uncertainty of life is short. It's like, we don't know how short. And I really don't want to waste time. I had this 2-week quarantine in this cabin up here in British Columbia. And I came in with like a structured, without being like kind of cuckoo about it, a structured kind of plan, what I was going to eat, what I was, a certain number of meditations every day. Obviously I had Zoom calls and meetings and work to do. I was trying to stay off my phone, certain amount. I did not want to be plugged in for 2 weeks, watching like 17 movies a day. Like I really came in because I wanted this to be a meaningful experience where I could rest and recharge. That's why I included the kind of, try to get off of coffee at the same time.
Oh yeah.
That getting off of coffee hasn't helped my efficiency with getting stuff done. I'll tell you that.
It's okay.
I
it won't, because you'll be in the state.
Yeah, coffee kept me moving a little bit better in the mornings. It takes me a while to wind up, but it's been a good 2 weeks for sure.
Because you're probably in a state of oasis the whole time, man. That's okay.
Kind of. Yeah,
when you go in with the attention that you really want to kind of be still and be very happily present where you are. Listen, if I was in British Columbia, my mom went when she was in college. She talks a lot about it to this day. I'm gonna have to go up there, but 2 weeks over there, man, you're right. You want to kind of like chill out and focus a little bit on you. And like you said, meditate, eat right, do those things. I have a question. I want to turn the table here and ask you kind of more of an expert question based on like what your experiences have been around creating a meaningful life. Once you kind of decided that that's the avenue you wanted to go, especially after having been diagnosed, was there a plan of action for the things that you were considering meaningful? For example, your family, the foods you were going to eat, the amount of times you wanted to meditate. What was that plan of action? And I'm just curious, because anybody who's tuning in now, if you could imagine, like, it's all about activating and delivering what you think is going to be a good choice for your life. But for you, how did you go about that process?
Well, I haven't been certainly perfect necessarily with it, obviously. But definitely a more spiritual practice was really important to me. So that includes the meditation and making time for a spiritual life, more of a spiritual life, for sure. And that includes family too. We're involved together as a family, and spending time with my kids, and also really continuing this passion project of me, exploring all aspects of health in general, even though that's one of the pillars of health. That's a big one.
That's great. You're a big one. You're the best, dude. I can't thank you enough for coming onto this. I think I learn more about every time I hear you talk, and to have this amount of time with you has been such a pleasure and an honor. I'm glad you're healthy and well, first of all. Especially after the year we've all had together. But for everything we've discussed, Cameron Mathison, thank you. We can find Cameron Mathison on Instagram. You could totally find his secondary Instagram account.
Right. All Health 360.
All Health 360 on Instagram as well. And he hosts everything. Go type in his name on Google. You're going to go find so many things. And you got this project with General Hospital now, and Hallmark still got you, so busy. And it's incredible to see. And look, he's smiling on the Zoom call. Anybody who's tuning in on audio and pod, you can't even tell. well. Dude's happy. And that's all we ask of Cameron Mathison, to continue staying happy and healthy. Thank you again, my friend.
Hey, I appreciate you a lot. I think you're doing a great thing with this podcast, and I'm grateful to be on it. So thanks, man.